People who grew up middle/upper class, what did you not believe about low-income households, but it was actually true? That a vacation isn't yearly, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. At this time of year I'm reminded that our vacations growing up were always a trip to a relative's house. Never stayed in a hotel until I was an adult. Same here. My vacation was a whole week at my grandmother's house. Honestly, I would rather be at grandma's house. The one time we went on a vacation, my parents were super stressed and fought even more because they had to actually interact with each other and with us. Grandma's little farm in Bumduck, Arkansas wasn't fancy or exotic, but we woke up to a huge breakfast, a whole field to run in, trees to climb, and guinea hens to chase. And at night we were called in to eat another huge dinner, and Grandma and Papa idly chit-chatting with us. No yelling, no fighting. I wish I could go back. I'll share a story that woke me up. I was a manager on a PC refresh, where we had employees out in the field. Since they were traveling, one of their perks was that we gave them $50 a day for food. All they had to do was send in their receipts. I was approving receipts for the week, and noticed that one of our employees had only submitted a receipt for $25, so I called him to make sure he understand how the reimbursement process worked, and to ask for the rest of his receipts, which typically were around $300 week. He told me that all he bought for the week was bread and bologna, since he didn't have the money to front the expenses, which is why the receipt was so low. I was floored. And that is when I started to realize what it means to not have any savings or access to credit. Needless to say, we fronted him the money the next week. My boss asked me to buy a $50 part out of pocket the other day and he'd pay me back when I got back to work, and I was thinking, damn, if we hadn't just gotten paid I would have had to tell him I couldn't buy it. Luckily I got to avoid that awkward interaction. One time at my old job, the office manager was away and the other accounts woman had to do payroll. She ducked up, and I only got paid about half my fortnightly wage. I told the accounts woman and she laughed it off, saying she must have messed up, and the office manager could fix it up when she got back, in another fortnight. I had to do the professional version of a tantrum before this woman would agree to just transfer the missing wages to me and have the books sorted out later. It was a reminder to me that so many people have some financial security, while I live pay to pay. If I hadn't gotten the rest of my wages I would have had to choose between rent or food. Thought food stamps were S-stamp book you trade for specific food items. Did not know utilities could be turned off due to non-payment. Did not even realize people didn't pay their bills. My family talks a lot and asks a lot of questions. My husband's family found it very offensive at first, assuming we were prying, and they were ashamed of their answers. The kid not going on the field trip wasn't uninterested. His parents didn't have the money for him to go. Many of us thought he was just a bad kid. Same thing with homework. My parents assisted appropriately, other kids had no help at all. Some kids didn't have money to play sports in school. Some kids had to work and give their parents their money to pay bills. The list goes on forever. I have learned so much from my husband. Here in Scotland, people with small children, under 4 I think, who are on low income get Healthy Start vouchers. They come in a letter once a month and you can buy things like whole milk and fresh fruit and vegetables. They're also good for baby formula. Also, they come with a voucher for multivitamins for children. They're an amazing thing and have saved a few friends of mine. It's also illegal to sell them to a third party, and you can't buy anything else with them, though only some shops accept them. Edit, it really warms my heart that this is my highest rated comment. It's so amazing to see that people actually care about stuff like this. We all need to take care of each other. At my local farmer market, Snap Cards holders get fresh fruits and vegetables at half price. That people used credit cards because they didn't have the money at the time, instead of a convenient way to earn points by paying cards off in full each month. I learned this after moving away for university. Turns out loan payments and paychecks don't always come in at convenient times. That some kids only got hand-me-down clothes and rarely got something new of their own. I went to private school and there was a girl that I assume was on scholarship financial aid, and she always smelled really bad. I saw her putting on deodorant in the bathroom once, and I guess I must have stared a second too long because she told me that she didn't have anything clean to wear because her mom didn't have money for the laundromat that week. I couldn't believe that people had to wear dirty clothes until they could go to the laundromat. I just thought everyone had a washing machine in their house. A high school by me recently added a laundry room for students to use if they had a need. They can talk to the coordinator, move loads between classes, and have clean clothing available by the end of the day. Not something I couldn't believe, but something I didn't really realize. The temperature of the house is strictly controlled in the houses of lower income people that I know. When I was a kid, I'd turn the heat up to 80, and set the AC at 65. I'm horrified to remember that I used to love drying my hair in winter when I was 15 by cranking the thermostat to 85 and putting a towel down by the baseboard heating vent. I'd lie down on the towel and fan out my hair in front of the vent. The warm air was like being at the beach, and I'd read a book as my hair air dried or until my dad got home and flipped out by how hot it was indoors in February. It never occurred to me that heat cost money, just that my dad was always too hot and like a cooler temp than we did. I grew up poor, still don't have AC, and I'm currently staying with a wealthy friend in Dallas for Nye. Earlier today, I happened to be walking under a vent when I felt the warm air blowing out. She was weirded out when she came back from the store and found that I'd moved a kitchen chair a few feet over to the vent while I used my laptop. It had never occurred to me that I could have changed the thermostat settings up a few degrees. Ooh. It's not really normal to change other people's thermostats though, so what you did makes sense to me. I grew up in a middle-class home and am now a teacher in a Title I, aka lower income, high school. I always knew that there were people who were less fortunate, but my first year of teaching has been a real eye-opener. 5 to 7 kids sit in my room during lunch every day. I noticed that one student either didn't eat or had a Coke and hot Cheetos. I learned that he only sometimes had lunch money, and if he did, it was only $2, $3. This December, many students didn't have enough warm clothes. And of that portion, most walk 1+ miles to and from school. Many don't have the money for school supplies, let alone lab fees. Only some classes have lab fees. Mine don't. I bought big boxes of granola bars and paper, binders, etc. to give to the kids whenever they need, but as a fresh from college 22-year-old with $45,000 in debt, there's only so much I can do. It sometimes breaks my heart, but I hope being a good teacher and mentor helps them in ways that money can't. Edit, I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It was a rough first semester and you have no idea how much I needed this encouragement. Smile. Just FYI, Title I schools give free breakfast and lunch to everyone who chooses to get it. Some of your kids may not know that. They don't have to qualify, get their parents to sign papers or anything. Just get in line. I work in a Title I school as well. We do offer free, reduced, and full lunch. The only downside is that to qualify for free or reduced lunch, the parents have to fill out paperwork. And a lot of these parents are afraid of giving out information. They have arrest warrants, collectors, etc., so they won't fill out the paperwork. It sucks for the kids. Frown. I went to a low-income school and sometimes kids got turned down because both parents work and make too much but were struggling horribly. That was me. I had 3 other siblings going through school at about the same time, and they don't factor in other kids as well when it comes to that. They do in Ohio now. That's how our family of 5 qualifies for assistance. Well, my dad grew up extremely poor, and because of this he worked very hard to make sure we were middle class and that myself and my siblings were better off than he was. The one story he always told us that I almost couldn't believe was that in school, can't remember what grade level or how old he was, but he had an art assignment to draw his favorite pair of shoes. He didn't have a favorite pair, he only had one pair of sneakers that he had had for over a year. They were ratty and gross, but that's all his family could afford. He was embarrassed and didn't do the project, and his teacher pointed it out in class, so my dad just walked up to his desk, took a shoe off, placed it on the teacher's desk, and just said that's why. The teacher didn't know what to say, so my dad took his shoes and sat back down. That story always blew my mind and made me realize how lucky I was, since I didn't have to worry about where my shoes were coming from. That actually I now drive my mom crazy because I make sure to use my shoes and other clothes as long as I can, even though they are extremely old, but it makes me feel a little better knowing I'm using things to the fullest rather than until they're out of season or anything like that. We were very poor growing up. When my older sister was in first grade, she only had 2 outfits for school. My mom made sure her clothes were always clean when she went to school. It was the best she could do for us with what we had. Our Christmas pictures, you could always find several articles of clothing passed down from one kid to the next when you line the pictures up by year. Hand-me-downs have always been a fact of life in my family, too. Being the youngest kid in a rather poor family, I had hand-me-downs of all ages from my brother, cousins and friends. Never really had any new clothes until I was an adult.